Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 278, A Ruin with a View. The episode begins with Ash and the gang, or rather Ash and May, walking on their way to their next destination, Oakdale Town, so that Ash could register for the Hoenn League. May wasn't used to walking, as she used her bike to get around everywhere, so when she was already lagging behind when Ash was just walking, she began to panic as Ash began to run ahead at immense speed. Planning to go even faster, as he suggested to Pikachu that he should let him off his shoulder and the two of them should race to Oakdale Town. May then countered that she wouldn't have agreed to come with Ash in the first place, or even suggested it, if she knew that Ash and Pikachu would want to race each other all the time. Ash rebuttals that you had to get used to walking super fast, claiming that he had walked with Pikachu for a long time during their journeys in Kanto and Johto, although May rebutted that Ash was able to walk super fast because he was used to it, while she was not, because she had a bike all the time, and pleaded Ash to slow down. Ash rebutted, though, that he wanted to get to Oakdale Town before it got too dark out. May was still adamant that it would be impossible for her without her bike, but she decided to meet Ash in the middle and stated that she would try and move a little faster if Ash tried and went a little slower. So the two meet in the middle, with Ash going slower and May going faster, so they're at a relatively moderate pace, not too fast or not too slow. And May thankfully at least seems to get the hang of walking at a moderate pace. Ash and May had exited Little Root Town by this point and were now on Route 101. May was still a little tired, despite her improvement, so she decided to distract herself by looking at Pikachu, before questioning Ash on why Pikachu was outside of his Pokeball, as she thought that all Pokemon owned by trainers had to be in their Pokeballs most of the time. Ash admits that this was usually true, but states that Pikachu was a special case because ever since he had met it, Pikachu had refused to go into its Pokeball, so he had decided to let it roam free because it was his best friend and he didn't want to upset it. May then wonders if her Torchic didn't like being in the Pokeball and if she should let it out as well. But figured that Torchic did like being in the Pokeball, otherwise it probably wouldn't have seemed happy when she let it out. Ash stated that May should feel lucky that Torchic liked being in his Pokeball because even though he didn't mind having Pikachu out because, it was his best friend and he liked to always hang out with it, a lot of the times, he wished that Pikachu would go in his Pokeball so that it could avoid being captured by people like Team Rocket, since they seem to capture it almost every episode. As May sees how happy Pikachu was outside of its Pokeball, though, she begins to doubt once again if Torchic was really happy inside of it, admitting that she didn't know it well enough to know for sure. Ash suggests that May look in her Pokedex to find out more about Torchic, to potentially find out if it liked being in his Pokeball, as he does the same, wanting to find out more about Torchic as well. As May and Ash read Torchic's Pokedex entry, though, May suddenly saw a wild Pokemon come out from the grass, so she took out her Pokedex and identified it as an Azurill, the Water Ball Pokemon, and declared that it was extremely cute, and she was so enamored by it that she wanted to catch it. Since May was a noob trainer, she merely just throws a Pokeball at it and expects it to catch the Azurill, and when it closes, she thinks that she did. However, she doesn't realize that Pokemon can break other Pokeballs, which Azurill does, confusing her, leading Ash to clarify that you need to weaken a Pokemon before you can catch it. May was a bit hesitant to do this, as she only had one Pokemon, and she didn't think that Torchic would be strong enough to weaken Azurill on its own, but she had no choice, so she sent out Torchic. Unfortunately, while May was trying to think of an attack for Torchic to use, before she could say anything, the Azurill began jumping away, leading Torchic to get curious as to where Azurill was going, and it chases after it, which causes Torchic to run into a tree after Azurill purposely directs it there and then runs out of the way. May goes up to Torchic to make sure it was okay after running into the tree, as the Azurill laughs as it runs away, finding Torchic a weak little bitch and stupid for running into that tree. May tries to comfort Torchic, but it was too angry at Azurill's taunts and broke out of May's grasp and starts chasing Azurill again. Azurill simply laughs as it moves out of the way when Torchic approaches it, forcing Torchic to run right off a small cliff, but since May was chasing after Torchic, May was able to jump in and catch Torchic before it got injured. However, Torchic still refused to give up, as Azurill was now done and trying to leave, having had enough fun, but Torchic was too determined to let Azurill escape it. However, May picked Torchic up and gave it a scolding for trying to run away, warning it that it could hurt itself again, and she didn't want it to hurt itself. Torchic began crying due to May's yelling at it, and the fact that Azurill was getting away, which annoys Ash, who tells May that Azurill was getting away and that she should just let Torchic go after the Azurill, since that's what it wanted to do, and it probably wanted to prove itself to see if it could get the Azurill. And May eventually decided to let Torchic chase after it, still wanting the Azurill herself, and wanting to learn more about her Torchic's motivations to go after it, so that she could learn more about it in general. Torchic was happy, as it realized that Azurill was still nearby, and he became determined to not let it escape, as he chased after it, with May and Ash following, until May used her Pokedex to find out that Torchic had Peck as an attack, and told Torchic to use it, but unfortunately, Azurill dodged the Peck, forcing Torchic to peck a tree instead. Torchic continues to peck a tree, assuming that Azurill may have went up into the tree, but May quickly informs Torchic that this wasn't the case, leading Torchic to find where the Azurill had dodged and chases after it again. Unfortunately, Torchic wasn't watching where it was going once again, as it was too determined to capture Azurill, forcing it to run into a rock, although this only knocks Torchic down for a few seconds, as it was used to running into shit by now, so it continues chasing after Azurill into some bushes that were by the river, and it then uses an Ember, and it actually makes contact with the Azurill. Unfortunately, it seems the Ember also made contact with the older members of the Azurill's family, being a Marill and a Azumarill, and they all emerged from the bushes, which was revealed to be where the Azurill was going. It was going to reunite with its family, and since the three of them were angry that their family reunion was interrupted, all three of them used a water gun directly on Torchic, knocking it out with all three of the blasts combined. Seeing Torchic knocked out, Ash tries to take action by having Pikachu use Thunderbolt, and thankfully, this was able to scare the Azumarill, Marill, and Azurill away, so that they can't desecrate Torchic's fainted body. May picked up her Torchic from the ground and apologized to it, feeling useless that she couldn't use any attacks against its opponents, but Ash assures her that even if May did use any attacks, they probably wouldn't have done much anyways, as fire types were weak against water types, and Torchic was a fire type, while Azumarill, Marill, and Azumarill were water types. May was worried for her Torchic's health, but Ash also assures her that they could just take it to something called a Pokemon Center, where a woman named Nurse Joy would heal it up. Though clarified that if they're going to take it to a Pokemon Center, they should probably do it pretty quickly, in case another Pokemon came and tried to attack Torchic. This just made May even more worried, as her and Ash quickly hurried to the Pokemon Center. On the way, though, while May was praying that her Torchic would be okay, her and Ash came across some ruins at the top of a hill on Route 101. May just wanted to get to the center, but then her and Ash are distracted as an archaeologist comes out by the ruins, revealing his name as Professor Alden, explaining that these ruins were known as the Odale Ruins. Ash was somewhat intrigued by these ruins, as you would expect. However, he saw that May was super distraught, so he joined her in simply asking Professor Alder if he knew where the Pokemon Center was nearby, leading Professor Alder to point behind the hill with the ruins and state that there was one just beyond the ruins. Ash and May thank Alden for his assistance, and they rush down the hill to the Pokemon Center, and they enter. Since May had never been to a Pokemon Center before, due to her not being a trainer, she didn't know anything about it, so Ash had to direct her to the main counter where Nurse Joy was, and instructed her to put Torchic's Pokeball, which she had returned Torchic into the slot meant for 6 Pokeballs in total, and stated that Nurse Joy would eventually come and take a look at it. And sure enough, Nurse Joy and her Chansey arrived, and Nurse Joy began giving Torchic an examination to see if it was alright. A few hours later, as Ash and May waited, May prayed that Nurse Joy could help. Nurse Joy came back and reported that Torchic would be okay, since she had healed its wounds, but in order to recuperate, would need to heal at the Pokemon Center overnight to get some rest. Since although its injuries were healed, it needed to get its energy back. Ash and May decide that they needed some rest as well, so they decide to go and sleep in the Pokemon Center. Although May was surprised that trainers were allowed to sleep there, but Ash clarifies that this was possible, as the Pokemon Center had plenty of guest rooms for trainers to stay in. Before they go to sleep then, May becomes intrigued by what else the Pokemon Center has to offer, so she asks Ash to show her around the entire place, since she had never been to a center before. Ash agrees to do this, but states that he had a phone call to make first, also therefore showing May the first part of the Pokemon Center being the area with the computers, as he uses one of the computers to call none other than Professor Oak. Although he had to wait a while for some other people to get off the phone, as all the phones were taken up. When Ash does reach Oak, though, he informs him of how he was currently in Odale Town in the Hoenn region, so he could register for the Hoenn League. Before Oak could say anything, though, May jumps into the conversation, ecstatic to see Professor Oak, and surprised that Ash knew him. Knowing that he was super famous, and informs Oak that her brother watched Oak's lectures and all his other lessons on TV that he did all the time, and also listened to his radio show that he filmed from Goldenrod City. Oak was happy to see that someone had enjoyed his lectures, and wished that he could talk about them more, but he revealed that he was currently busy with some research, so he didn't have much time. So he simply wished Ash and May good luck on their journeys after May had informed him that she had just started hers, and May promised to do her best on her journey, with Oak commenting that he knew that May would reach new heights while having Ash by her side, basically glazing Ash up as he hung up. With the phone call done, May reminded Ash that she wanted him to show her around the Pokemon Center, so Ash obliged, as he showed her to the rooms that the trainers were allowed to stay in, the guest rooms, as well as the trainer lobby, where a whole bunch of trainers hung out that also happened to have a Pokemart in it, where you could buy useful items such as potions and Pokeballs. Meanwhile, Ash wasn't the only one who had just made a call, as Team Rocket were making a call to Giovanni from a little phone booth that they found on the hill by the ruins. They called to inform him of an update in their progress, stating that although they hadn't caught Pikachu yet, they were still trying, and they were now in the Hoenn region. Giovanni was somewhat annoyed with Team Rocket only caring about Pikachu, because sure, he wanted Pikachu, but he wanted other mons as well, especially with Team Rocket being in a new region. So he asked if Team Rocket had caught any Hoenn Pokemon yet, leading Team Rocket to try and finally get that promotion that they've been wanting for so long, by explaining that trying to capture Pikachu was hard enough, so if they were going to capture any Hoenn Pokemon, then Giovanni should give them a raise. Giovanni refuses, however, reminding Team Rocket that they had only just paid off most of their debts, so he obviously wasn't going to give them a raise right away. As for how they paid off their debts, remember during the Johto League when they had that whole scam business? Yeah, they never gave the money back, and they managed to give most of it to Delbert, so although their debts weren't entirely paid off, they were mostly paid off. Team Rocket still continued to beg for a raise, leading Giovanni, who was initially angry at this, to get an idea, claiming that if Team Rocket wanted a raise, then he had a job for them that was very important, being that he wanted them to set up a Team Rocket HQ in Hoenn, as Team Rocket wasn't well known in Hoenn, and they didn't have a base there. Reassuring Team Rocket that if they were able to accomplish this, then the rewards they would get would be very, very huge, and it would be their big chance to become well known all throughout Team Rocket. Giovanni then gave them an official declaration to make Team Rocket well known in Hoenn, even if that went beyond just setting up a base. It could also involve Team Rocket just committing several heists, or bank robberies, all that shit, just to make themselves well known. Team Rocket were immensely excited, practically left speechless, to be given a task by Giovanni, finally being able to do something interesting, as opposed to just catching Pokemon over and over and over again, or rather, failing to do so. And they stated their belief that Giovanni must have essentially been giving them a promotion of some sort by letting them do a job this important, because he wouldn't just let any regular Team Rocket member do a job as important as setting up a whole new HQ in a region. Giovanni then warns Team Rocket of 2 groups that were also evil organizations and already popular in Hoenn, being Team Aqua and Team Magma, stating that Team Rocket should be on the lookout for them, as they would likely try and stop Team Rocket from exerting too much influence over the region, specifically telling them to try and stop them if they caused any trouble. However, Team Rocket were still so excited over getting what they believed to be a promotion from Giovanni that they couldn't even hear what he said, so Giovanni just decided to hang up. revealing his true plan to his Persian as he stroked him. Essentially, Giovanni's plan was to have Team Rocket try their best to build a Team Rocket base, but even if they couldn't, that was entirely fine, because he knew that them building a base could potentially draw out Team Magma and Team Aqua, and he actually wanted to essentially use Jesse and James as bait to lure Team Aqua and Team Magma out, so that he could take the opportunity to learn more about them, even if that put Jesse and James at risk. Giovanni then smirks as he looks around his room with paintings and mounds of paperwork. Meanwhile, as Ash and May were touring through the trainer lobby, Ash overheard two trainers on a bench talking about how there was a new Petalburg gym leader at the Petalburg gym in Petalburg City, also stating that he was apparently the first Petalburg gym leader in a long time. The concept of a new gym leader makes Ash immensely intrigued as he runs over to the trainers on the bench and asks about the gym leader and what he was like, and who he was, until he gets cut off by May, who drags him away like Misty would Brock, complaining that she was starving and had spotted a restaurant somewhere by the mart in the Pokémon Center and wanted to go eat there. Ash, not wanting to face May's anger, decided to oblige and goes with her to the restaurant. Ash and May quickly placed their orders and sat down at the restaurant as they began eating, with May eating curry and rice and Ash eating a rice omelet. After one bite, May expressed how impressed she was with the food's quality, explaining that she didn't expect food from a Pokémon Center that was available to every Pokémon trainer to taste so unique, as she thought that the Pokémon Center would go with the cheapest options possible. As Pikachu douses down an entire bottle of ketchup, Ash explains that the Pokémon Center put a lot of effort into making sure the food was in tip-top shape because it was meant for Pokémon trainers that worked hard and actually deserved the food. Unlike May, who hadn't really done anything with her Pokémon yet, although May responded that she would, so she was just eating in preparation. This led Ash to counter that if May wanted to be a trainer deserving of this food, then she had to actually learn how to train her Pokémon, as he proceeded to talk about all the training he had with his Pokémon over his journeys, and gave her some training tips. Just then, they look over and see someone that they recognized had just sat down at a nearby table, Professor Alden. They wanted to go over to thank him again for leading them to this Pokémon Center, but as Professor Alden was eating his spaghetti, he spotted Ash and May and eagerly went over to them, happy to see that they had reached their destination, and he soon sits down at their table to talk to them. Meanwhile, back with Team Rocket, they had come out of the phone booth, and James and Meowth got distracted as they could smell the scent of the restaurant from the Pokémon Center nearby and began craving all this delicious food that they could smell, but Jessie snapped them out of their food trance, reminding them that the most important thing was them catching Pikachu, as still wanting to get Pikachu from last episode, she was essentially just completely laser focused on that. When James and Meowth were reminded of the plan to capture Pikachu, they were also reminded of Giovanni's task that they had just gave them, that they were just super excited to have, and this excitement returned. Now, you may be wondering how Team Rocket were able to forget their excitement for this new job in the first place, but just remember, this is Team Rocket we're talking about. They would think about food over anything. Having their excitement back, they began to brag about how lucky they were to have the only Team Rocket mission in Hoenn, and began to dig a tunnel to create a base in Hoenn, hoping to get the rewards from Giovanni because of this, so that they could move up so high in Team Rocket, they would no longer have to see Butch and Cassidy again, as Butch and Cassidy would be on the lower ranks of Team Rocket. Of course, they also wanted the inevitable money that they would get as a reward as well. Meanwhile, back with Ash and May, as they talked with Professor Alden, the topic of the conversation changed back to the ruins that Ash and May had found Professor Alden at, as, just like before, Ash was still intrigued by them. Knowing that Ash wanted to learn more about the ruins, Professor Alden then took Ash and May to his house, where he had a photo of some of the ruins with a diagram that went into more detail about them inside of his research center. As Ash and May examined the diagram, Professor Alden explained what the diagram depicted. Essentially, Professor Alden had found a hidden chamber in the ruins that had a door that supposedly linked from the ancient Pokemon world to the present Pokemon world in some way. Ash questioned how Alden was able to know what was on the other side of the door, leading Alden to reveal that he had also found some stone tablets that contained stories near the ruins that explained about this door and where it led. Ash and May were very interested in the prospect of connecting to the ancient Pokemon world, though Ash was surprised, since the only thing he knew about the ancient Pokemon world was that there were fossil Pokemon like Kabuto, Kabutops, Omanyte, Omastar, and Aerodactyl, and he thought that those Pokemon were primarily supposed to be found in Kanto, so he was surprised that there were ruins that could connect to them in Hoenn in some way. However, Alden clarified that the connection to the ancient Pokemon world didn't have anything to do with fossil Pokemon, but rather Pokemon that didn't change into fossils at all and had stayed as living beings since ancient times for many millennia. Explaining that was the entire reason why he was researching the ruins, since he was also intrigued by the fact that there were ancient Pokemon that didn't have to transform into fossils to survive. And he wanted to learn the mysteries behind them, and the mysteries behind any other ancient things in the ancient Pokemon world. May, being a Pokemon noob, was obviously unaware that ancient Pokemon outside of fossil ones could have possibly existed, and she barely even knew anything about fossil Pokemon to begin with. Hell, she didn't even know that the fossils were ancient, or that ancient Pokemon even existed. Like, she just thought Pokemon kind of existed like a couple decades ago or something. As for Ash, he really wanted to enter the ruins so that he could potentially meet these unchanged Pokemon that didn't require a fossil form to survive for so long, leading Alden to reveal that he knew how to enter deep down into the ruins where the ancient Pokemon may be, as he had found another ancient tablet that explained how to enter down there, but it stated that 4 special keys were needed to enter the deep down in the ruins, and admitted that he had been trying to search for these keys for a long time, further up in the ruins, but he hadn't been able to find them. Ash and May were disappointed, as before Professor Alden clarified that he didn't have the 4 keys, they had begun searching his research area, hoping that he had found them. But no, he hadn't. Meanwhile, 2 members of one of the evil groups that Giovanni had mentioned, Team Magma, were watching Professor Alden's lab from outside. And one of the members used heat-sensing goggles to see inside of the lab and said to the other grunt of Team Magma that she had spotted Professor Alden. With that, the other Team Magma member, who appeared to be of higher stature, permitted the 2 of them to now enter the lab since the professor had been spotted, and soon after, a few other Team Magma members reveal themselves and go inside the lab as well. But before they do, they go around the back of the lab to the lab's power generator and cut it, making the power go out in the lab. But since the lab was hooked up to the same power generator as the Pokemon Center, the power goes out in the Pokemon Center as well. Anyways, inside the lab, Ash, May, and Alden are extremely shocked to see the power go out, obviously, but they're even more shocked as suddenly all the Team Magma members let out their Houndoom that had braces on them to make them comply, indicating that they battled by making their Houndoom angry, and they have their Houndoom surround Alden, threatening him to help guide Team Magma into the ruins deep in, likely because they wanted to see this ancient Pokemon as well. Alden initially refused, but just then, Nurse Joy, having been weirded out by the power in the Pokemon Center going out, came to the conclusion that something must have happened to the power generator that was by Alden's lab. So she went to Alden's lab to see if the power was out in there as well, with a flashlight, only to be captured by Team Magma members who were standing by the door. And the Team Magma members then used Nurse Joy as leverage, essentially stating that they would harm Nurse Joy with their Houndoom if Alden didn't comply. Alden tried to resist some more, but when Team Magma also threatened to harm May and Ash if he didn't comply, Alden was forced to cooperate, as he then began leading Team Magma to the ruins. Although he had a plan, as he knew that he couldn't lead them fully into the ruins since he didn't have the 4 keys. With Alden gone with most of the Team Magma members now, some of the Team Magma members stayed behind to keep watch over May, Ash, and Nurse Joy so that they could continue to use them as leverage so that Alden wouldn't quit cooperating. However, Nurse Joy had a plan, as she quickly managed to run away with May and Ash to a nearby warehouse, planning to run into one of the warehouse's storage rooms and trap Team Magma inside. Essentially, they were going to lure them inside, and then once Team Magma entered, they would quickly leave the room and then lock it. But this plan backfired on them, as Team Magma was able to lock them inside the warehouse instead, with Team Magma locking them in and keeping watch from the outside. With no way out, Nurse Joy was especially concerned due to the power in the Pokemon Center being out, meaning that a lot of the Pokemon inside of the center couldn't be treated because they required electrical machines for their treatment, which obviously couldn't be powered without electricity. This led May to get concerned, as Torchic required the electrical machines to be healed up, so now it wasn't getting healed up either. Ash was also concerned about Professor Alden, so he wanted to escape to save Professor Alden. So Ash orders Pikachu to try and find a way to escape, and sure enough, Pikachu was able to locate a vent in the building. Ash thanks him, and happily goes up to the vent, climbing up on some boxes, and begins to crawl through it with Pikachu. Although before he goes, Nurse Joy instructs him to go to the Pokemon Center before he went to Alden, explaining that she had a backup generator that could restore the electrical machines in the Pokemon Center. It just had to be turned on with the help of a key. Clarifying that the key was in the Pokemon Center, Ash obliges as he and Pikachu crawl through the vent. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they had finished digging their tunnel and crawled out of it, hoping that where they would have ended up would be the perfect spot for them to plant their new Hoenn base, so that they could extend the base downwards into the tunnel. It was then revealed, though, that Team Rocket had dug up to the ruins where Professor Alden and Team Magma were. Team Magma soon approach Team Rocket and surround them, questioning who they are and what the fuck they were doing here, and ask if they were the ones who had dug this weird hole that they found. And Team Rocket realizes, by Team Magma's angry tone, that they were for sure enemies. So, Team Rocket send out their Arbok and Weezing to battle Team Magma, as the Team Magma grunts then use their Houndoom, and they prepare to roar. Team Rocket see the Houndoom embraces and realize that, oh fuck, we're gonna die if we keep Arbok and Weezing out. So, they go to return Arbok and Weezing, but before they can do this, they're practically forced to return Arbok and Weezing, as the roar actually gets off, which forces Arbok and Weezing back into their Pokeballs, because that was the effect of roar, much like Mean Look. Just as Team Rocket were planning to do when they went to go recall their Arbok and Weezing, they then proceeded to go back down their tunnel, fleeing away from Team Magma and the Houndoom. As Ash was going through the vent, May decided to join him, being extremely concerned for her Torchic, which she continued to express as she crawled through the vent, and she basically decided to go through the vent with Ash because she felt responsible for taking care of her Torchic, and she felt the way that she could do this was by helping Ash find the key to restore the electricity. Eventually, Ash, May, and Pikachu were able to make it outside of the warehouse, with Ash getting out first and then helping May out, though when they get to the Pokemon Center, they find that there were some Team Magma grunts guarding the center as well, presumably in case Ash, May, or Nurse Joy were able to escape, so this forced Ash and May and Pikachu to find another vent and go into the Pokemon Center through that vent. As they were crawling through the vent, though, they found a split path and weren't sure which vent actually led into the storage room that had the key in it. Pikachu then notices an air filter as it feels some wind in its ears, and noticing that the wind was coming from a certain direction, Pikachu came to the conclusion that that direction could have led outside, because, it was windy outside. So Pikachu led May and Ash in the direction away from the wind, which was the direction that happened to lead them to inside the Pokemon Center that was being blocked by an exit grate in the vent, which Ash moved away with his shoulder, and jump out of the vent, landing in the Pokemon Center storage room, where Ash was able to locate the key underneath a desk in the room. And May goes searching and eventually finds the backup power generator. So Ash comes with the key and places the key inside, activating the backup power and making all the Pokemon in the center safe, as well as turning the lights in the center back on. May makes sure that the key was fastened inside of the generator, and with that, her and Ash go back through the vents to the warehouse and inform Nurse Joy that they had restored the power to the center. However, they only went through the Pokemon Center's vents and were able to enter the warehouse through the door, unlocking it, so that meant that Nurse Joy was now free and she could go back to the Pokemon Center. Although Ash and May advised her not to, since Team Magma grunts were guarding the front of it, but Nurse Joy said that she had to check on all the Pokemon, so she went there regardless, and thankfully, she managed to sneak in without Team Magma noticing her, and was able to check on the Pokemon. Ash and May were hesitant about leaving Nurse Joy by herself, but Nurse Joy had told Ash and May before she left for the Pokemon Center that they should set their priorities to helping Alden, which they did, as they ran over to the ruins, expecting to find Team Magma and Alden there. But before Ash and May arrived, though, we then see what Team Magma had been doing with Alden. They were essentially trying to get him to reveal the location of the chamber in the ruins. As Team Magma was practically destroying the ruins, trying to look for the entrance, Alden remained calm, because he knew that even if Team Magma were to find the chamber, they wouldn't be able to enter it, because they needed the 4 keys. Team Magma ordered Alden to show them the location of the chamber, believing that he knew it, since he was the archaeologist there. But Alden refuses to give up the location of them, until Team Magma threatened him with physical violence, forcing him to give up the location. And he still wasn't panicking, as he informed Team Magma that even though they had the location of the chamber, they wouldn't be able to enter, since 4 keys were necessary to go inside, and adds that he hadn't been able to find the keys, and if he was an archaeologist and couldn't find the keys, then they were likely nowhere near this chamber, so Team Magma must have been out of luck then. Much to Alden's surprise, though, the 4 keys were actually in the possession of Team Magma, being 4 colored orbs. That's what the keys were. A green orb, a red orb, a yellow orb, and a blue orb. Team Magma then state their belief that if Alden knew about these 4 colored orbs, due to him being an archaeologist, he must have also known how the 4 orbs were able to have been locked into place so that they could act as keys to open up the chamber. Alden refused to help Team Magma put the keys in the correct position, but Team Magma simply reminded Alden that if he didn't comply, then they would have their Team Magma members that were at the Pokemon Center harm May, Ash, and Nurse Joy, not knowing that the 3 of them had escaped. Alden, not wanting any harm to come to Nurse Joy, Ash, and May, was forced to comply as he put the 4 keys in the correct order, opening up the chamber. When Team Magma and Alden enter the chamber, most of the Team Magma members are excited to find a whole bunch of wall paintings that depicted ancient fossil Pokemon, such as Kabuto, Kabutops, Ammonite, Amistar, and Aerodactyl, as well as information about them. The excited Team Magma members take pictures of all these paintings so that they could report them back to base. However, the admin of the operation, the main Team Magma guy, was disappointed by what they found, as obviously they wanted to find the Pokemon that wasn't a fossil Pokemon, that had survived for millennia, not just paintings of fossil Pokemon. So, as the excited Team Magma grunts finished taking their pictures, claiming that it was better to have something to come back to base with than nothing, the admin still declares the mission a failure and disappointedly orders the other Team Magma members out as they all escape on a helicopter, much to Alden's dismay, not only because Team Magma had escaped, but because they had took pictures of the paintings inside the chamber, which was illegal, as you weren't supposed to be able to take pictures of ancient shit. Only archaeologists were allowed to recover the stuff and put it in a place of safekeeping. Or they would just leave them in the chamber in the case of the paintings. Alden gets depressed at having failed to stop Team Magma and protect the sacredness of the paintings, and as he sits down in disappointment, Ash and May then arrive just as they see Team Magma's helicopter flying away in the distance. Ash and May were glad to find Alden seemingly unharmed, as they expected that Team Magma would have hurt him, but Alden confirms that he was unharmed, although he expresses his disappointment at Team Magma having taken the pictures of the paintings inside the chamber. However, Ash and May comfort him, reminding him that at least Team Magma hadn't found the millennia-old Pokemon that didn't require a fossil to stay alive, and Alden is comforted by this. As for Team Rocket, they had popped out of their hole that they dug and saw that Team Magma was gone, and Ash and May were talking to Alden, making the 3 of them distracted. So Team Rocket made their move, seeing how the 4 keys could be valuable, and they tried to steal them as they took them off the chamber. As they were doing so, though, Wobbuffet forcibly popped out of its Pokeball, screaming its name super loud, which alerted Ash, May, and Alden to Team Rocket's presence, since the only trainer Ash knew with a Wobbuffet was Jessie. Alden then panics as he saw that Team Rocket had taken the keys, which had closed the chamber, and if Team Rocket escaped with the keys, then the chamber could never be opened again, as the keys had to be reinserted every time. Team Rocket began to make their escape, running to their tunnel, with Jessie sending her Arbok out to stop Ash, May, and Alden from following. However, Pikachu just uses a quick attack on Arbok to send it knocking into Team Rocket, as Arbok tried to dodge a second quick attack, but couldn't, knocking out Arbok, and also knocking the keys out of Team Rocket's hands. Before Team Rocket could retrieve the keys, Ash then has Pikachu use Thunderbolt to send Team Rocket blasting off. Alden then picks up the keys and puts them back inside the chamber door to reopen it, and Ash and May then re-enter the chamber just as the sun comes up. Due to the sun making the chamber brighter, Alden then spots that there was actually a second door that the keys could be placed in inside the chamber. So Alden places the keys in that door, and with the power of the keys, as well as the sunlight shining on all of the paintings of the fossil Pokemon, creating little shining cracks in the wall, the cracks then break, revealing a secret passage behind the wall of fossil Pokemon paintings. As the keys and paintings continue to glow, with the wall around the paintings having lines of light on them, even as the passage was revealed. Eventually, the light fills the entire room, and Ash and May and Alden go down the passage, which was a set of stairs, which brings them into an underground cave below the ruins. They curiously go investigate the cave, and they eventually start to smell water, which makes them come to the conclusion that there was an underground spring or lake of some kind. So, they follow the smell to yet another staircase, and when they go down this one, they sure enough find an underground lake, and a mysterious Pokemon that Ash had never seen before jumps out of the water, followed by several others of the same species, as Ash uses his Pokedex on it to find out that they were called Relicanth, and learn that Relicanth was the Pokemon they were looking for. Leaving Alden somewhat surprised, but happy to find that the tablet was right after all. There was a Pokemon that had existed for over millennia that had survived all that time without having to undergo any sort of form change. That Pokemon was Relicanth. Alden then happily thanks May and Ash for their help. With the Relicanth found, Ash, May, and Alden return to the Pokemon Center, while Alden quickly goes back to his lab. And Ash and May see that the power had been restored to the Pokemon Center, with Nurse Joy explaining that that was because Officer Jenny had arrived and managed to fix it, and also confirmed that Officer Jenny was now launching an investigation to try and find out who Team Magma were and why they wanted to enter the ruins. Ash asks if Officer Jenny had been able to find out any information yet, but Nurse Joy sadly denies this, though clarifies that Jenny was going utterly insane trying to find out anything, and also thanks Ash and May for saving her and allowing her to get back to all the Pokemon. May nervously asks Nurse Joy if her Torchic was okay, worried that it was still injured, leading Nurse Joy to go get Torchic from the ER and happily give it back to her, explaining that Torchic was all fine. Since May had been given Torchic's Pokeball, she happily lets Torchic out and confirms with herself, pleasing herself, that Torchic was actually okay, as she happily hugs it. Torchic happily hugs May back, indicating that the two of them already had quite the strong bond, despite just meeting not too long ago. Later, Ash and May then leave the Pokemon Center, saying goodbye to Nurse Joy, although, as they were leaving, they debated if they should go check with Alden to see if he had reached any more conclusions after seeing the Relicanth. However, before they could go to Alden's lab, Alden meets them right outside the Pokemon Center, rushing to them excitedly, explaining that he had found out more information, clarifying that back when they were down in the ruins, he had also managed to find another one of the tablets that stated that humans actually used to live together with the Relicanth in super ancient times, which implied that there were also some early versions of humans as well, potentially, that lived alongside some of the prehistoric Pokemon, even if the humans weren't nearly as developed as they were today, probably caveman-esque people or something. May was excited by this, especially since she didn't think that the bond between humans and Pokemon could have possibly went that far back. And Alden then declares that even after this discovery, he was just beginning his career as a archaeologist. He was going to try and find out even more information about Relicanth and its past, and May and Ash wished him luck as they set off, with Alden thanking Ash and May for all their help once again, and stating that it felt like they really traveled through time when they saw the Relicanth having come from the past and lived for so long, with May and Ash agreeing with this. Obviously, they didn't actually go back in time, but it was fair to say that they somewhat did, since they saw something from so ancient back in the past. Ash and May then say their goodbyes to Alden as they continue off onto the next route. Ash and May debate where they should go next, with Ash kicking himself, remembering that he was going to ask Nurse Joy where Petalburg City was located, as he wanted to go challenge the gym there after hearing about how there was a new gym leader. Regardless, he and May try their best to find Petalburg City, even without directions, although May seemed hesitant to go there. Ash ignored this, though, as he was too focused, wondering who the fuck the new Petalburg gym leader was, and when he asked May if she knew, she claimed that she didn't know, although she was looking to the side, nervous, implying that she may have actually known who the Petalburg gym leader was. Ash didn't notice this either, though, as he was too excited and too focused on finding Petalburg City so he could have his first Hoenn gym battle.